Hey guys, welcome back to another Weird Wednesday. I'm Asherz, and this is
Tobias.
Tobias. How are ya?
Good. How are you?
Doing fantastic. How was your weekend?
Oh boy, it was great. I feel like I get asked that all the time, and I never have a sexy answer. It's never like, well, I went out to the club, and then I got invited to this after party on a yacht or something. No, it's like literally we had our home gaming group over, and we played some Warhammer Fantasy role play. So
Oh,
for anybody who knows what that is, you can guess that that it was a good time because I was clearly excited about it. But for anybody who's not into that kind of stuff, we just did nerd stuff for like 5 or 6 hours on Saturday, and boy, that was about it. Watched a bunch of Star Wars on Sunday, and called it a weekend.
what Star Wars? We just talked about Star Wars, but what Star Wars specifically did you watch?
Well, we had just watched the first six, right? So we got through episode six as of last weekend, and so we decided to watch the sequel trilogy, and so we watched episodes 7, 8, and 9. And I got to say, I haven't seen them in a while, and I grew up because we all know I'm old as shit, so I grew up during a time sort of post original trilogy where Star Wars was not that big of a deal anymore, right? So there was this this gap of like 10, 12 years, right? From like the mid 80s into the 90s until they started getting episodes 4, 5, and 6 ready for re-release as special editions, where like Star Wars was not the cultural sensation that it is today, right? And so it was propped up by all of this crazy bullshit. They had novels that would be written, and comic books and stuff like that, and that shit would get wild. Like
Yeah.
it was just all over the place, and it was really cool. But if people want to complain about how like something about the sequel trilogies doesn't make sense, it's like, well, my guy, you obviously weren't around for most of the extended universe. As cool as it was, like a good 3/4 of it didn't make any sense. So anyway, like that's all in the way of explanation as to why I can watch the sequel trilogy and go, you know what, it's not that bad. The Emperor coming back as a clone, it's been done. Like that was the whole Dark Empire like comic series, like that comic series from Dark Horse back in the day. Like that was the Emperor coming back as a clone. So it's really like they're just recycling ideas. So if you grew up with that kind of stuff, you watch it and you're like, okay, sure, I'll buy that. I liked it okay in the 90s when they did it the first time, so this is fine. Uh, so yeah, I watched them again. I hadn't seen them in a while, and episode 7 was fine. Episode 8 was actually a lot better than I remember it being, and then episode 9 again it's look, is it an objectively good movie? Of course not. Like there's a lot of behind the scenes shit going on with that where like it just doesn't end up making a great cohesive film. But it's not the worst movie I've ever seen. It's not The Room, right? Like holy shit, like it gets way worse than that. So overall, like they're not as good as the OG trilogy, but nothing is, and
Yeah.
nothing's gonna be if that's what you grew up with, which of course it is. What I grew up with. So as long as it's fun,
I
that's
miss
that's all I
when
care about.
I miss when you could like I miss when a movie could come out, right? And you could get some serious mileage off of it. Looking at like the gap of time in between when the first three were released compared to the next three, the actual first three, is that um
Right. Right. Yeah.
the
It's like,
first three?
okay, is it
Um
chronological order that they happened or when they were released? You know, these
You
are
know,
important.
but there was like a huge gap in between, and you're right. You know, a lot of the lore that was had for that, which of course, again, I'm not. We talked about this. I'm not a huge Star Wars fan, but I am very aware that there's a whole deep universe in all these books that were released and stuff like that. Well, now it's like I said, you're like, oh, we watched a bunch of Star Wars, and I have to ask, what did you watch? Because now there's so much. It's so oversaturated. Like there's tons of content out there. And it's it seems like at least twice a year there's a new Star Wars something or the other, right? A new spin-off series. Now you've got the main trilogies. Now they're like going off and spinning off the main movies into other trilogies and stuff
Oh
like that.
yeah.
It
Well,
just didn't work
Disney's
that way
got a hold
now.
of it, and Disney
Yeah.
is going to produce the shit out of content for Star Wars until it's either until it's either the biggest thing in the entire planet or everybody fucking hates it. So there's really no. I don't think there's any end in sight for that. Which by and large, I've been pretty happy with what I've seen so far. Um, there was a time when I was younger than I am now where I would have got in such a huge dipshit nerd rage over any little change or perceived slight or the idea that like a Disney executive just wasn't as big of a fan of Star Wars as me or some bullshit. But I don't care. Like I'm too old for that shit now. So like if it's a fun story and like it at least is like the logic of it is internally consistent, I'm fine. That's cool. Like there's some neat lightsaber fights. Like I can live with that.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. That's an age thing. It just comes with you realize you wake up one day and you're just like, why would I waste my time on this?
Oh yeah. This
But
is
there's
why I don't read comments on the internet anymore.
yeah,
Like you
smart.
couldn't pay me to read fucking like I won't read comments on shit that I have written. Like I'm not going to do it. It's true. It is an enormous waste of your life and a good way to go to bed mad. Like there's just no reason for it.
Oh yeah.
So,
Oh yeah, it'll hurt
no
your
thank
feelings
you.
for sure. Yeah, I started to and then I agree with Nate, our personal Men in Black over there that's listening. He says Trek is better. Man, I gotta agree with that.
I like Star Trek a lot too. It's fine.
It's true. You can like both. But he
Oh
also
yeah.
says the mouse requires content. And again, considering he's the Men in Black, I think he knows that for sure. That is verifiable proof.
I
Uh,
also grew up loving Star Trek. I from the time I was in grade school when Star Trek Six, the Undiscovered Country, came out. That was the first Star Trek movie that I've seen that I saw in the theater, and I've seen every single other one in the theater as soon as it came out. So yes, I am. I'm also a big fan of Star Trek. I never really got that weird dichotomy, like the idea that you could either be a fan of Star Wars or Star Trek, but never both for some
yeah.
stupid reason. When most people I know who like one usually like the other one. I don't. I guess I don't really know anybody who likes, unless Nate just hates Star Wars. In which case, I know one person who's really into one and not the other one.
Yeah, I don't think that you have to choose. And then throw Lord of the Rings in there too, right? You're not allowed to like it if you like either of those, I guess.
I like all three. I'm literally reading The Lord of the Rings for like the millionth time in my life right now after watching Star Wars last weekend. So, I mean, what does that make me? I've
You're
got like
you're gonna go
seven
to
or eight
jail.
tabletop role playing game books for the Modifius 2D20 Star Trek system that I've ran multiple times and love. Like,
Someone's gonna
good
call the
lord,
police on you. I mean,
I'm like
that's
some kind of nerd mutant. I shouldn't exist. I guess I just like it all. I don't know.
oh, this is for me? Great. I mean, and it's that simple. Yeah, I've been going on this movies journey myself, and my next themed project was to watch all the A24 movies, right?
Yeah.
I historically don't like A24 movies.
That's an
Um,
understatement, but sure.
they're just not for me. And I have tried, right? All the cool stuff. Everybody's like, oh, you gotta watch this one, check this one out. When I announced that I was going to go down the A24 gambit, I had to make some decisions. What did I consider an A24 film? Because they are a production company and a distribution company. It's like Troma. Just because
Oh,
it's distributed by Troma doesn't make it true Troma, right?
right, right.
And just because I get to feel like I haven't done it in a while, big Troma fan over here.
Oh
We
yeah,
support Troma,
if it's not directed by Lloyd Kaufman, is it really Trauma?
right? So right, so you have to kind of decide. So I decided it was anything that was produced by A24, something that they actually made, right? That
Hmm.
they had a hand in making. And what I found out really quickly is that all these movies that people claim that they love by A24 aren't actually A24. That was kind of awkward because I'm going through the list, and let me tell you, it was kind of difficult to curate this list. I had to go through every single one of their films and figure out who actually produced it. And they have a huge list of movies on their website that aren't theirs. There were some on that list that I've seen that I liked. Tusk is on that list. I enjoyed that movie. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. I actually had a really good time with that one. That was really fun. Neither of those though are A24. So I go down the list and I'm kind of checking them out. And I'm like reading the descriptions of these movies, and it is just complete art house trash. I mean, is it made for somebody? I'm sure, but none of
Sure.
it's made for me. And
Who
so
thought that Tusk was an A24 movie? That's a
it's
Kevin Smith movie.
it's listed on their website as one of their films
Oh, that's weak. Okay.
because they distributed it. They're one of the distributors of the film.
Uh-huh.
And so, people assume that if it's on that list, that means it's A24. It does not. I think the only people are like, they're like, oh, Swiss Army Man, and which always looked interesting to me, right? I'm like, cool, I can't wait to dig into this list. Maybe I'll find stuff I like. And I watched two of these movies, and they were terrible. And it was like, you know what? I'm not doing this. So I posted the list online. I'm like, hey, everybody, this is my list. If you want to check it out, if you guys want to run that gambit, go ahead. I'm not doing it though. Um,
Right. So like
and
just the pure A24 movies. Those are the ones where you're like, well, this is
right,
unwatchable. Okay.
yes, and the first one was really good, but it suffered from the same syndrome that A24 does. It was Moonlight, and it's like a coming of age story about a queer black man,
Okay.
and you know powerful movie, very effective. It had my attention all the way through, and then it gets to the end, and then it's just fucking trash. And I'm like, dude,
Well, is he like a werewolf or like a serial killer or something? Like, what's my hook here?
no,
Oh no. All right. Well, never mind then. Jeez.
neither of those things. Just like I said, a coming of age story about a queer black man. That's great. I can't relate to that. I'm neither queer or a man or black. I can relate to he had a drug addict parent. Okay, it wasn't made for me, right? Obviously,
Uh,
and that's fine. But like I said, the ending just falls flat. It just ends. It just ends, and there's no anything. You don't feel anything. You have no idea it's gonna end. It just does, and it's like I've always said this about all the A24 movies I watch. It's like the last like 20 minutes of the movie, they bring in somebody completely new and go, "Don't even read the script. This is the concept. Just write whatever you want. We'll do it."
huh.
So
I'm still reeling at the idea that like there are A24 movies that aren't horror movies because that's the
none of
only
them are.
thing. None of them?
I believe only 3 of them were, and It Comes at Night, Hereditary, and Midsummer. But, like, The Witch, that's another one. People are like, "Oh, you gotta watch The Witch." It's not A24. It's not an
Huh.
A24 movie. And, but no, the rest of them, there's, like, sports documentaries, and most of them
What?
are coming of age stories.
Wow. Get out of here, A24, with that bullshit. Horror movies or get the fuck out.
Right. I at least thought I'd enjoy the fact that I'm watching horror movies. No, it's not even that. They're just, like, terrible. Like, the second movie I watched, it's about a husband and wife. They're cheating on each other, They're both planning on leaving one another and have planned this out with their affair partners, and then they end up sleeping together again. And like now they're cheating on their affair partners with each other. And I'm just like, I don't care about any of this.
That sounds so boring. I just, ugh.
Like I'd rather watch Jerry Springer, right? It's way more entertaining.
Oh, Jerry Springer's a million times more entertaining than that. I'll watch Jerry Springer fucking reruns all day.
Yeah, and that ruined it for me. I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, now that's exactly what annihilated the list." The second movie on the list, I was like, "You know what? If this is what all this stuff is, and I'm sure they're all different. Maybe there's one gem in there. Maybe there's a couple. But I'm not going to dig through all that shit to find stuff. So instead, now I'm moving on to Cronenberg. So,
Oh, nice.
which is a good choice.
Oh, yeah. No, that's, yeah,
So
100%.
I have to cleanse myself of the trash and
Make sure to watch David Cronenberg in what I think is his only acting role in Nightbreed, Clive Barker's Nightbreed.
oh yeah, Nightbreed's a good one. I've seen that.
Yeah, he plays the killer doctor in that. I don't think he's ever acted in anything else. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but
No, I could see Cronenberg only taking on one role ever.
right.
That makes a lot of sense.
It's such a
Uh,
good role. He's actually really good in it too. So yeah.
I don't know if he's acted in anything else. I'm gonna have to look
I
into
mean,
that.
Google it, I guess, but I would be surprised. I mean, maybe not. He's never acted in anything else I've ever heard of. That's for sure.
Yeah, true. I'm gonna well, while I'm doing my Cronenbergathon, I'll definitely look into it, which is gonna have much more enjoyable movies. So I'm very excited about that. But anyway, somebody come on one of the movie reviews. You're right. Don't read comments. It's just a waste of your time. Some dude and is like mansplaining to me. you know, oh, it's terrible that you're choosing to only see the bad, and I'm just like, it's not that. It's just I don't like the movie. Like I'm allowed to not
yeah.
like the movie
I
that you
saw
chose.
that actually, and I
Yeah,
was like, "What the fuck, man?" Choosing to just see the bad. That's like coming, like walking into my house, squatting in my living room, taking a huge shit, and then telling me like, "Oh, it's a shame that you're only choosing to smell the bad in this room right now."
you should be happy that I'm here.
Yeah, right. Like, what the fuck? No, this is just a terrible situation. I don't. It's not. Don't gaslight me into believing I'm wrong for thinking this shitty movie sucks.
Right. I think I know what kind of movies that I like. And I didn't like that one. Well, and then I don't know what he commented something else and it was so long and I'm like, I'm not fucking reading this. Like and then I
Right?
didn't.
That's the best. That's where you need that meme. Like that's just like what does it say? It's literally just like, congrats or, I'm sorry that happened.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah. Because I'm
Um
not reading all that shit.
Right. So
Absolutely.
that is super annoying. And then it's like people, I started when I started doing the movie reviews, it was just supposed to be fun because it's Christmas and I'd never seen these Christmas movies and that's what it was. And people like them. People want more of them. I wouldn't do this. I don't do this because I think I'm some super cool film critic that has all the right opinions about film. I am admitting that I don't know shit about film. I've hardly seen any film ever. Um, and that's why I'm doing this. And
Yeah.
if I don't like a movie, that should be okay. And it's okay if people that come on, they're like, oh, I love this movie. That's fine. I don't care about that. Don't
Sure.
fucking come at me after you're the one, first of all, I don't friend request anybody on Facebook. So if it's on Facebook, your ass is there because you asked to be there. Don't fucking come at me and be like, well, you're wrong. you know?
Right, it's art. It's subjective. Like I understand, believe me, I've got my fucking English degree, so I know, or at least I understand that there are objective criteria that people use to critique art. And so yes, I understand that there is an objective difference between something that is well written and something that is not, but in terms of enjoying the art, throw all that shit out the fucking window because none of it matters.
Right.
People are going to like different things. And like, that's okay because as a subjective medium, like art is enjoyed differently by different people. And the idea that every single fucking person has to like this one thing because, some elitist dipshit holds it up, it puts it on this pedestal as being this objectively enjoyable fucking experience. Fuck off with that. Like that's such a brain dead fucking take. Like I I don't even know where to start in terms of how asinine that is. Like, really? Nah.
It's very insecure, is what it is. And when you do that shit to people, all you're saying is that I don't accept myself. And we all see right through the bullshit. So how embarrassing for you. Um,
Just say that next time.
right.
That's like, that would eviscerate somebody. I'd be gutted if somebody told me that.
I mean, it's just the way it is. But I'm getting my block button hot because let me tell you, if you motherfuckers come on my post and disagree with me about these Cronenberg movies, I'm blocking you because you're wrong.
They're all great. Now shut up about it.
Right. All of them. 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10. No notes. You keep being you, Cronenberg.
Yeah, perfect. No, I just so yeah. Anyway, again, the jury's still out on A24. Still haven't seen one that I like. If you want to suggest an A24 movie to me that actually is A24 made and you think it's really great, I'll watch it. I'm here for it. Change my mind. But until that happens, and no, I don't like Hereditary or Midsummer. I've seen them both, and I don't like them. Sorry, I don't like them. There's better ways to display trauma. Better movies that do it better. That's my take, and that's fine if you like them. I don't care if you like them and I don't. Like it's cool, but so far, no dice, no dice. So Cronenberg, it is something that I know I'll like.
There you go.
Because I don't want to just only focus on the bad. So uh, anyway, speaking of focusing on the bad, um, let's do some news.
Nice segue. That's
Thank you.
great.
I'm a professional. So I've got one news. Before I do my one news, I want to do a little bit of housekeeping. Good housekeeping, that is. If you come here and you listen to the show every week, go leave it 5 stars. Leave it a nice review. If you're on Apple, go leave it a nice even if you've written a review before. This is not the same show. Tobias is here now, and we need to know what you think. So go leave it a fresh new review on Apple and give it 5 stars on Spotify, because it helps. It helps, and it's free. I'm not asking a lot. So take a break right now. Go ahead and leave your nice review, your nice 5 stars, whatever it is you got to do. And then after you do that, start making plans to come to Loveland, Ohio on March the 2nd because it's the second annual Frogman Festival. Wow, how exciting! I'm going to be there. I'll be there all day. I'll be there giving a talk on frog humanoids from around the world. And a bunch of other people are there too. You want to, again, support your community. I don't know if there's tickets or not. There might be. I'll sneak you in the back. Just let me know, and you just got to buy a T-shirt off me. Uh,
Yeah, just prop open the back door of the brick, like nobody gets hurt. It's fine.
Jeff Craig won't mind. We're good friends, so okay. Anyway, just wanted to throw those things out there because I think that they're important. I need some feedback. Are you guys still enjoying the show? What do you think about the new host and the new format and what's going on with it? Let me know.
Sure. So if you dig like whatever I am adding to this show, definitely go ahead and give a 5-star review. And if you don't like me, take that shit to your grave. I don't want to hear about it.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, if you don't like him, he doesn't read the comments anyway. So
That's true.
uh,
I will not know. And if we're throwing out events, by the by, I have some coming up, but only one worth mentioning. I will be speaking at Dead of Winter in the one and only haunted Mineral Springs Hotel down in Alton, Illinois. That's coming up next weekend, actually. It's going to be Saturday, February 10th. So definitely check that out. It's put on by the one and only Troy Taylor. If you're into the paranormal, I'm sure you already know who that is. So it's a great event, and it all goes to support local food pantries. So it's a great
oh,
cause and a great time.
very nice. Hey, that's not that far from me. I might come crash it.
Hey, there
Uh,
you
it's like a little less than 6 hours. That ain't bad in Midwestern speak.
go. Yeah, right.
I'll come sneak in the back door. If I can infiltrate a MUFON conference, I think I can bust in a dead of winter. No, definitely go check that out. Go meet Tobias Whalen himself. and tell him about whatever, talk to him about whatever. Just don't tell him your bad takes because he doesn't care.
I will not. I will sit there. I'll do that thing where I like plug my ears up and just go la 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 the whole time, like a toddler.
I think that's a good strategy.
Right?
Um, all right, on to the news section. Like I said, I only have the one news, but I think it's interesting to talk about. So, on a couple days ago here, January 25th in Alabama, something historical happened. They actually executed a man, Kenneth Eugene Smith, who was on death row for being the hitman in a hire and a murder for hire scheme. Um, Killed an old lady, stabbed her a couple times. It sounds really insensitive, but that part doesn't matter. I mean, death row happens all the time. It's horrible. Um, they put him to death with a new strategy. So they actually did something called nitrogen hypoxia. Okay. So typically, when someone's on death row and they're executed, they do the lethal injection, right? Basically, human euthanasia, and they inject you with these chemicals, and you just almost immediately go unconscious and die. They tried to do that with Mr. Smith. I think it was a couple years ago, and they were unable to find a vein. Spent hours and hours and hours trying to locate a vein on this guy. They couldn't get one. A lot of death row inmates will do this. So they will purposefully dehydrate themselves in an attempt to avoid execution. And when you dehydrate yourself, veins are hard to come by. And so sometimes they'll have to stave it off. Now they'll try it again. They'll keep trying until they get you. But the hope is that in that time that they have to reschedule your execution, you will get an appeal, right? And you'll be able to avoid execution altogether. And sometimes it works. So Mr. Smith had, whether or not he had tried to avoid execution, we don't know for sure, but probably they said, well, you know what? We got this new thing that we really want to try out. And basically, what they do is they take a mask and it's a full face sealed mask that they put over you and they pump you full of nitrogen. At that point, you can't breathe, you suffocate. Now, scientifically, they said that this is just as humane, if not more humane, to execute inmates this way. It is an instantaneous, you become unconscious, and then from there, eventually your body does take a minute to kind of suffocate, but you're not awake during the whole thing. And it didn't go well. So it was, pretty horrific. People are calling into question this experimental thing that they did to this man, execution is already a hot topic debate for whether or not it is humane. And this just really pushed that envelope. Now, he had tried to appeal on the basis that he was basically going to be a guinea pig for this experiment. And the courts went ahead and went through with it anyway. Whenever they put the mask on him, they think that he may have attempted to hold his breath, and because he was doing that, it kind of drug out the process a little bit. I mean, I'll spare the gory details, but it took him about 20 minutes to die. And that's was a long time, and everybody that witnessed it said it was really horrific. So I don't know, Tobias, do you have thoughts on execution in
Did
general?
they not expect him to hold his breath?
I guess.
Because I
I
feel like that should have come as no surprise to anyone,
I
really.
agree. And that's just a natural physical reflex. I mean,
Yeah,
period.
you probably don't even have control over it. Yeah,
Right.
it would be completely instinctual. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not an advocate for the death penalty. I think that it has pretty severe ramifications, because obviously we know that at this point that we for sure have put people to death who were not guilty of
Right.
the crime of which they were convicted. So that alone, is enough for us to get rid of the fucking death penalty. We already don't need it, but yeah. And then you hear stories like this. I mean, are there a lot of stories of inmates being peacefully executed? I have to imagine that most probably struggle because again, it's got to be like in animal instinct, right? Like
Mhm.
you don't have any choice. Like we strive to remain alive under all circumstances. It's
Right.
it's why you well, there's all kinds of gross examples. You know, it's why people will claw their fingers to the bone when they're buried alive, right? Like,
Sure.
will do
Yeah.
literally anything. It's why somebody would be capable of cutting off their own foot to escape from being stuck,
Right.
to, you know, to escape from some trap or something. Like, so yeah, I mean, of course it's going to be awful and nasty every single fucking time, right? Like, what, how dead inside do you have to be before you start considering the taking of a human life as routine, as
Right.
something
Yeah.
that isn't a huge conflict, as something that wouldn't result in this fight every single time, you know? Like, it's just fucked up. The whole thing's weird and creepy. I'm going to go on record right now. I'm going to take a brave stance. I don't like it.
Well, that is a brave
So there, yeah,
stance.
you heard it here first. I don't like the death penalty.
I
Shit's
no,
fucked up.
I agree. I largely agree with you. Because and I guess it's because like I don't know, man. I'm not a murderer. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, right.
I don't want to kill people. It honestly, I mean, even just like reading this story, I mean, the impact of it when I think about like if that were me, if I were set to be executed, whether or not I was guilty, if I were set to be executed, there is no humane way to do that. Like there
Right.
isn't. Because you've got this entire build up, there's this whole ritual, the last meal, and then you've got to fucking go to sleep and then like wait until the next day. And I mean, there's no, your mind's just gotta go nuts. There's no easy way to be like, okay, yeah, I'm just gonna die now. Unless for whatever reason you actively want to die. And there are some people that, they decide that or whatever.
Sure.
But I do think that it is cruel and unusual punishment. But I get why people are so for it. I understand because the very first thought you have is, oh my God, you have this horrible, terrible fucking person and they deserve to die. They're not good people and they won't contribute anything good to the world. Kill them. That's the
Sure.
first thing. But they don't really think beyond the fact that like it's still a person. I mean, and you're right, that person might not even be guilty, you know I think that it should be largely up to the family. First of all, the family of the victims, right? Whomever is at play there. There are
Yeah.
some families that come forward and say, you know what, we don't want that. And then I think that it should be there should be irrefutable evidence completely that this person did it. Maybe you have them on video or something. There are some people that are just really terrible people. And I don't know, just me being a nice person, I guess I still feel badly for people, and I probably shouldn't. That's probably most of my problem in life, but I do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when it comes to the kinds of people who end up on death row, if they're really guilty, yeah, I mean, fuck those guys. Like, I don't have any pity for them. But the reality of the situation, I think, is twofold. On the one hand, of course, yes, you have that thing we already talked about, where somebody could be innocent. And believe me, every single one of these courts that has convicted somebody and sent them to death said that they had incontrovertible evidence of this
Right,
person's fucking guilt. So, like, that's not a good enough standard at this point. But then, two, if you really fucking hate this guy, it's not like prison is super fun. It's not Club Med, right? It's not a fucking all inclusive sandals resort. He's not living it up in there.
right.
Prison fucking sucks. So, it, if you want a worse punishment than death, because death is a release. Like, death gets you out of the conditions of prison, like out of the hell of being confined, because it's unnatural to be confined. And just as a species, we don't take to it very well. Then lock him up, keep him in fucking prison for the rest of his life. Like,
Yeah.
that's way worse than getting killed. Holy shit.
Yeah,
Like,
I
that's
agree with
so
that.
much worse.
Yeah. Like you have the thought every day, I'm never getting this is my life. I'm never getting out of here.
Yeah.
And you have to grapple with that all the time. That's why people do kill themselves in prison. You know?
Right.
Because that's the only escape that they have is death. So no, I agree. And people are like, well, who's gonna pay for all these prisoners? Well, we are. We already are. So
Oh yeah, we could afford it if we stopped locking up people for fucking marijuana and shit.
right. Right,
Be
just
no
like
problem. Hell, we'd be saving money. Like, good
yeah,
lord.
that's I mean, and not to mention, execution drugs, are, actually way more expensive. They cost more to have those drugs than it does to house them for the rest of their life. Isn't that crazy? That's a
That is
fact.
wild.
That's true.
Big
Um,
pharma.
big pharma, yeah.
Just saying.
Why don't we lock those fucking guys up?
Right?
I mean,
Have you seen what they charge for insulin? Fuck those guys.
oh, I know. Ask me how. Um,
Yeah, right, right.
it sucks. But yeah, though that's it. Just I don't think that people should be experimented on either. For new ways to kill them.
That's some Nazi shit. Yeah. No,
Yeah,
thank
it's
you.
crazy. They didn't test this ever, and I'm sure they didn't do any animal testing or anything. I'm almost positive I had read that. They just were like, "Hey, here's a theory that he should become unconscious right away, and then he doesn't even know he's dying." Well, we don't know that, first of all. Um, Second of all, you just then his whole fucking family had to watch it, and it's like, "Are you serious?" I guess they didn't have to, right? But they're supposed to. That's what
Well,
they
they
do.
had the option to close their eyes. No,
That's
I
true.
mean, yeah, of course, that's insane.
The whole thing is, it really blew my mind. This is the first time since we started doing lethal injection that we've had a new way to kill people. And, frankly, if we're gonna do it, if we absolutely have to do it, my personal opinion is, we should not schedule it. Well, we should schedule it. We shouldn't tell them when it's gonna be. Uh, and then they just take him out in the prison yard and shoot him. Frankly, I mean, honestly, I think that that is the most cost effective and the most humane way that you could possibly do that. As insensitive as this will sound, Old Yeller style, just do it, just get it done,
That was a
and that's it.
mercy for old Yeller, though. You
It
know what I
was, it
mean?
was, it was. It needed to happen for Old Yeller. But depending on if you prefer life in prison or death, this might be a mercy for them too. That's my personal opinion. If you have to do it, there's a lot of circumstances, I think. But that is why death row takes like years and years and years. Like this man was convicted like 40 years ago or something
Well,
crazy.
that's the other part of it. Like
Yeah.
putting somebody to death, by the time they're actually put to death, you have spent so much fucking money,
Yeah.
like, taxpayer money to get through all of the appeals and
Yep.
everything that, yeah, it would have just been cheaper to just lock them up for the rest of their natural fucking life.
Right. And just call it a day. And that
Yes.
would have been
Just,
it.
and that's what you should do to a monster. Just lock them up, lock them away. And
Hmm.
that way we never kill any innocent people.
Hmm.
I mean, it's bad enough incarcerating somebody unjustly. At least then you could, if they're found innocent or there's new evidence, or we find out that, like, I don't know, the prosecutor was corrupt or something, that there's a chance at restitution. But like, you can't give somebody their life back. Like, it's just too
Yeah.
much of a risk. That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, right. And then eventually, the innocent would, I mean, they could have a chance to salvage something, at that point,
Right.
with appeals and new evidence and breakthrough technology, things like that. It's happened. We're watching it
The
happen in real
Innocence
time.
Project is a real thing,
It
like,
is.
and they do a lot of good work because there are a lot of people, and it's easy for a lot of us to, who have relatively privileged positions in society to think, oh, well, the system could never fail anybody that hard, but it does fucking
All the
constantly.
time. Yep. All the time. It does. So I don't know. Again, we're still doing it, right? There's still the death penalty and some places throughout the United States, whatever. That part's neither here nor there. Some people have very strong feelings about it, but period, I think most of us can agree that experimenting on these people is inhumane. And I don't know if you don't feel that way. I don't know what to tell you.
Right? Just, I don't know. I guess, don't run for office. Generally, avoid me if you can.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not a murderer. I can't sympathize. But then again, I've also never had anybody close to me murdered, right? So I can't sympathize with those people. Maybe they have. Maybe people feel like, oh yeah, kill them all because maybe they've experienced something like that, and I can't even begin to imagine what that's like.
Sure.
But in my case, I just don't think that an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. Oh, I'll
Yeah. Well,
pull that.
the whole thing about that is, and actually, I can get into this more when we get to our main topic here in a minute. But the last damn person who's okay, the last damn person you should be looking to for an objective opinion on a crime or a death or anything else is the family of the victim, because they're not going to fucking have one. And it's not that their feelings don't matter, but you cannot give in to what they're feeling and accept that as justice,
Yeah.
because that's just not how we work. Their emotions are valid and they should feel them and process them, but they can't dictate policy. They just fucking cannot.
Yeah. I agree with that. I agree with that. I do. As much as that what's sucks for those people to hear in the time of grieving, it still stands. All feelings are valid. It doesn't mean that your reaction to those feelings are justified. So anyway,
Yeah.
that's what I had this week. So did you have any news for us?
I do. I don't know. I don't know if you saw this, but the Department of Defense released this absolutely milk toast statement on the Jellyfish UFO video.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
Yeah. So basically, like the whole thing is, of course, like UFO researchers and journalists like Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp, they keep pushing on this jellyfish UFO video, which I think is great because it's a weird ass video and we all want to get to the bottom of it. And so they received this statement from the Department of Defense. It's not very long. I'll read it real quick. It says, we do not comment on the authenticity of alleged DoD material that may have been leaked. DoD takes public interest in unidentified anomalous phenomena seriously and is committed to openness and accountability to the American people. This commitment must be balanced with the department's obligation to protect sensitive information, sources, and methods. To that end, Arrow will provide updates to the public via its website as it resolves UAP cases, including sharing the analytic approach and method used for each case, as well as imagery when approved for public release. The Department of Defense takes the potential unauthorized disclosure of national security information very seriously. DoD organizations, including Arrow, regularly emphasize to their workforces the importance of protecting national security information in accordance with information security laws, regulations, and processes. So, yeah, that's a big, long fucking string of government doublespeak bullshit, right? And what's interesting about it, to me, what's most interesting is, and this is pretty normal if you're used to seeing government statements, what's most interesting is what they don't say. So when this video was first released to Corbell's YouTube, he added this little description to it that said UAP of unknown origin displayed transmedium capability and has been officially designated by the United States intelligence agencies as a UAP. This designation is currently maintained. Now that assertion is not challenged in this statement. At no point is the DoD saying, "Oh no, this has a perfectly rational explanation," like, or even like we didn't designate this UAP or anything. They're just choosing to say that we're not going to comment on the authenticity of alleged DoD material that may have been leaked, which is also interesting because they're more or less admitting that it was leaked. Right. So like,
So remember back in oh 2017 or so, these videos started coming out, and I remember a very similar statement. Which of course we all know now are the famous Tic Tac videos, which were filmed by the and well owned, I guess, copyrighted by the U.S. government.
yeah. It,
They do this,
oh
I
yeah.
don't get it. Like, why even say anything at all? Like, why?
Well, they had to say something because they're obligated to. Whether they like it or not, if citizens, especially the media, reach out to the government in good faith, like they're obligated to release some kind of statement, and part of that I think is control. They want to have some control over the narrative, because if they don't say anything at all, then the people in the UFO field can just run with it and create whatever kind of narrative that they fucking want, right? And we
And
also
you
know,
can with no comment, basically. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I
Well,
just
this at least on the surface. So if you're not you or me, right,
sure.
and you look at this, you might go, "Oh, okay. Well, nothing to see here." They're basically just they're not admitting anything. They're not going to comment on it. It doesn't seem to be that big of a deal. I can push it to the back of my mind and whatever. Like if you're just like Joe newspaper, like just seeing this in like with your morning coffee or something, right? Like you might not make a huge deal out of it. And so they have that benefit, right? So they have to release something. Also, oh shit, I completely forgot what I was going to say. Also, I don't know because I forgot what I was going to say. But
I was
some
gonna
kind
say
of
that.
government cover up. That much I'm sure of.
I was gonna say that Joe newspaper is what they called me in high school.
Yeah, right. Good old Joe newspaper. That's back when we had newspapers.
Right.
And as soon as I said it, I was just like, shit, anybody under 30, they're going to be like a newspaper.
It's okay. I don't think we're cool enough to have listeners under 30.
Let's hope not, because that newspaper line it's going to fall flat.
Right. They're like, what is this
They just
newspaper?
immediately, I don't turn off their iPhones or however people listen to things. I don't know.
They turn off their jukebox.
Right. As soon as I said turn off, I was like, even that's an old timey thing to say.
Anyway, yeah, I hate this, just listen, I'll keep saying it. They're edging us. They're just edging us. They're just gonna keep
Right.
edging us, and we're not gonna get anywhere. I hate it, and then they wonder, oh God, where do all these conspiracies come from? Why doesn't anybody trust us? And here's the thing. Here's the approach that I would prefer better, and that would be honest. Okay, as a true crime big fan, I understand that when a case breaks, you cannot release all the information up front during an investigation. You will compromise your investigation by doing so. And
Right.
that's why I have gone to bat for Grush. And I have said, look, people are like, well, why doesn't he release this and that and the other? Because he can't, because they're actively investigating his claims. So he can't be like, well, I've got dirt on this motherfucker, because then this motherfucker now can go and try to cover his tracks. Okay. So I understand that. And I understand why they might put out these blanket terms where they're not admitting anything to it, but they're also not denying anything either. But if they just said, hey, look, you guys, first of all, they just talk to us like people. Hey, look, motherfuckers, we can't tell you everything about this right now. And that's that. It's an ongoing investigation, and we will release information when we can do so. But they don't even give that much. And that's the part that gets so frustrating to me, is that they don't just level with you and tell you like why they're giving this blanket statement.
Right. Right. Oh, um, I just remembered what the second part of what I was going to say before was. The other reason they end up having to release this stuff, I think, is because of the increased congressional interest in this stuff.
Yeah,
And so there are actually a lot of politicians now who take the subject seriously enough, or at least are willing to pretend that they do, to try to support their reelection campaigns.
sure.
That these departments, they can't just ignore it anymore, because if they do, there are Congress people who are going to make a big fucking stink about it, like a
Yeah.
big fucking stink. So
Yeah. It's
it
not
just kind of,
politics in just straight political terms. It's politics and a sociological standard.
yeah,
They're playing the game. And I agree with that. And, they are under investigation right now. We know that. They are under a whistleblower investigation. So I can understand how their silence could then make them look even guiltier. It can make them look bad.
right,
But I just am very. I guess I don't know what the harm is in saying, hey, yeah, we have this unidentified. I mean, they've released other videos, right? They've declassified other things. What are they waiting on? Then it does make you wonder, well, what came of this? This didn't just happen yesterday. This happened like what, 3 or 4 years ago? The video itself?
2018.
Yeah, I mean, this has been going on for a long time. What is it that they're investigating still? Are they investigating any of it? Is it the rest of the video? I don't know. They don't want us to see the rest of the video because then we know that these aren't just drones, or they're not just. Well, I guess that's what Kirkpatrick says, or was saying again when he was the president. They're just drones, but they're explainable. I don't know. I don't know what the end game is here. I just know that we're not going to get any answers.
I Not so far. I mean, Arrow has that big fancy website now. For everybody who doesn't know what Arrow is the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, which is the DoD's current official investigation into UFOs. And they have this fancy new website. Just came out like September of last year, I think, and ostensibly it is to provide, well, it's to receive cases from all over, and then it's to provide official, like, declassified reports on cases. And so according to this statement, Arrow is investigating it, which is another admission, if you're willing to
Right.
read between these lines, that there is something going on here, because Arrow wouldn't be investigating it if they already fucking knew what it was. um, and so Arrow is investigating this, which means that it's weird, and it means that, like, according to them, we'll get some kind of official resolution at some point. But what that's going to look like is anybody's guess. And I would be fucking shocked if we ended up with like the full 17-minute video. I think there's very little chance of that. I would love to be surprised. This is another one of those things I would just love to be wrong about. But again, I would be fucking shocked.
Yeah. Well, and let me make that very clear. Make it very, unless something major has changed. Arrow doesn't investigate civilian reports and videos. They only investigate military involvement with this stuff. Is that correct?
By and large, I want to say they are beginning to move into investigating civilian pilots. So if you
Okay.
like if you're a pilot for a major airline or something and you
Right.
have some kind of sighting, if they aren't now, I think they are moving towards investigating those as well.
Speaking of not to really, just totally flip flop here. Speaking of civilian pilots, if you or anyone you know works at Chicago O'Hare Airport, get a hold of myself or Tobias Whalen.
Do it.
We got some questions we'd like to ask about things. Again, anyone if you know somebody that works there, have them reach out to one of us, or you reach out to us. Let us know. Let us know how we can get into contact with your family, friend, whomever, so that we can speak to them about some things
Yes.
related to flying
Anonymity
US.
guaranteed for your
Absolutely.
protection if you prefer.
Absolutely. I don't push that enough, but every little bit I try to get it out there. Nothing yet, but I'll keep pushing.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, interesting. Well, we'll just continue to watch this jellyfish. Disappointingly, not really a jellyfish UFO video. So
Right. I think it looks more like an Imperial probe droid, personally.
okay, that's a good guess.
Right.
It's like a Rorschach test. What do you see in this?
It is. I've been watching a lot of Star Wars lately, so I mean,
Checks out.
yeah, this
I'm
makes
still going
sense.
with balloons, but I'm only going with balloons until I see this thing go in and out of the water. That's what I need to
Hmm.
see, and I'm not going to see it.
No, that's my
Yeah,
big fucking issue with it too, right? Like, they talk about all this, like, these transmedium capabilities and how they saw it go into this lake and then it like shot out of the fucking lake.
and we
And
don't see
like
all
all
that.
we get are the 2 minutes of video where it's just bobbing along like a fucking idiot doing nothing.
Like me on a daily basis. Yeah, I mean,
Right? It's yeah, it's the UFO equivalent of me like getting up to go check the fridge for snacks. Like,
right.
who cares?
Yeah. Until I see something different. There's a lot of circumstances surrounding it, but I mean, I got to go with Occam's razor in this case. Until I see something that says otherwise, I just got to say it's balloons, and I hope it's not. I want it to be something else. But the ball's in your court, Arrow. Prove me wrong.
Arrow is not here to prove you wrong. If anything, they'll be like, it's super balloons and we proved it. And if you don't think it's balloons, you're under arrest.
Fair enough.
I'm going with where I end up most of the time in these cases, and that's unexplained. I'm
Oh,
going with unexplained. Maybe it's balloons. Maybe it's an Imperial probe droid. Maybe it's two Imperial probe droids in a trench coat. I don't know. Unexplained.
it's the Wicked Witch of the West. I don't know. It could be
Maybe
anything.
could
Um,
be anything. That's right.
it's question mark question. And what I mean by that is that it is anomalous question marks clustered together, floating in the sky.
Right.
Um, just to make it that more mysterious. Anyway, is that your news?
That is all the news fit to print.
Okay, well, let's go back to let's talk about death again.
Oh yeah, good. I needed a pick me up. So
No, this is a very interesting case. It's something that a lot of people dub most of the time unsolved or unresolved or unexplained. And I can see why. I can see why. I
yeah,
disagree, but I can see why.
right.
And we will kind of get into the details. So, some backstory. February 19th, 1994, at about 8:15 p.m., a woman by the name of Gloria Ramirez is taken to the Riverside General Hospital in Riverside, California, via ambulance. By the way, that part is important. Gloria is conscious, but she is incoherent. She's experiencing really bad heart palpitations and really high heart rates, really low blood pressure. She is not doing well. She can't breathe. Like I said, incoherent mess, and she gets taken into the ER. She's rushed in. They expect her because again, she's coming via ambulance, and they start immediately administering drugs, a myriad of stuff. It's kind of weird because when I research these things, I don't usually just pull up the Wikipedia page and go off of it. I'll read multiple accounts and try to find original reports if I can. I had inconsistent results trying to figure out what it was exactly that she was given at the ER. But what I know for sure is that it seems to be across the board, whatever the details are, painkillers, sedatives, and then medications to try to control her heart rate and her blood pressure. What they are exactly, I don't know. I don't know if it matters. It might to some people, but I don't have those details. So, they, start mixing her with this drug cocktail. They're doing their vitals and things like that. And then things get really weird really quickly. First of all, there's a nurse in the room with her and a medical assistant. There's nurse Susan Kane, and then there's medical assistant Julie Gorchinsky. Okay, and they are doing their job. They note a couple of things about Gloria. They note that, first of all, she has a fruity garlic smell coming from her breath, um, which is not a good sign. I can tell you that. But who knows? Maybe she had some strawberries dipped in garlic. They don't know. And then they started kind of doing a couple things to her. One thing that they did, and I can't tell which one came first either, also inconsistent. I think they defibrillated her first. So they had cut open her shirt, went to go, as my notes say, give her the shocker. And when they did, because of course it says that I'm a 12-year-old boy. Um, when they did this, when they had removed her top, they had noticed that she was covered in like this weird, like oily sheen. But again, it's the ER, right? People normally when they're rushed to the ER like that, first of all, they've been sick for a while. They probably haven't showered and who knows how long, Their hygiene's not up to par. They don't know what kind of, condition anybody has been in up until that point. They're not that shocked, by it. So they defibrillate her and then they start, which actually had gotten her heart back on track. But then they started to draw her blood, and this is where it got fucking off the rails. Okay. So Susan Kane starts drawing her blood, and what she had noticed was that, immediately she starts drawing, and this strong ammonia smell is coming from like the tubes of the blood draw. And, she thought that was kind of weird. And Julie also thought that it was kind of weird. They were kind of like, oh, it's kind of strange, but didn't think anything of it. And then they kind of look in the tubes of the blood, the vials of blood, and they notice that there are these like crystallized manila colored, well, crystals in her blood. She had like glitter blood. And it was bizarre. And then Susan fucking faints, just fucking passes out. And this was strange, not completely unheard of, especially if Susan were new in her career. It didn't really say how long she had been, an ER nurse, but sometimes certain things just get to you and it just happens. You see a lot of really traumatic shit in the ER, so it's not typical that it happens. But so they're like, "Oh my gosh, Susan, are you okay?" And then Julie all of a sudden starts to feel very lightheaded. She's like, "Look, I gotta go sit down. I feel not good." But then she fucking passes out. She faints, hits the floor. And this, is where it, like I said, it just kind of continues to grow. More and more people start becoming afflicted. Um, a respiratory therapist who was working in the ER that day, she fainted. Other people started complaining about feeling lightheaded, feeling sick, feeling nauseous. So they decided to go ahead and evacuate the entire ER and put all the patients, all the staff, everybody outside except for a select few who were actively working to try to stabilize Miss Ramirez. And unfortunately, they were unable to do so. About 8:50, so I mean, not even 45 minutes later, she was pronounced dead. And in total, it affected 23 people. Ended up having some type of illness, 5 of which were hospitalized. So I'm going to pause there before we get into what the fuck. Tobias, I know you researched this topic, but just kind of like up front, just pretend you don't know anything about it. What's your first thoughts about this situation?
Well, you know what? There's a lot that's interesting about it, and one of the things that I find most immediately interesting, just at first glance, is that this mystery malady, right? That seemingly was affecting nurses and doctors, right? It didn't affect everybody.
It didn't. Yeah.
It's some people, but not everybody. And well, actually, you know what? Let me back up because you asked for like my first thought. My first thought
Yes.
actually is that it is devastatingly sad to see a 31-year-old woman die
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
with a treatable, was it cervical cancer?
Yeah. It was.
Yeah,
Yep.
because
Yeah.
that's like she had a fairly treatable cancer and she was 31 and she died, and that's fucking horrible.
Yeah.
So that's first thought number one. But then thought number two, once you kind of try to you know not move past necessarily, but you can't let your emotions sort of cloud your judgment when you're looking at the facts of the case, right? Um, and so, yeah, thought number two, of course, is that it's very odd that it's affecting some people and not everybody,
Hmm.
and that puts me in mind of things like mass hysteria, which of course was an explanation levied for this particular event. Although I don't think it's the actual answer, but it definitely was something people were throwing around. Um, and then also back like all the way back in 1994, because there's been work done on this and stuff written about it since. But you go back to 1994, and the immediate reaction of her family was that this was all part of a hospital cover up to cover up how they fucked up, and she died as a result of some kind of malpractice, and so the hospital concocted this story of her being toxic or something to disguise how they screwed up, and that's an angle worth discussing. Again, I don't think that's what happened, but if you immediately dismiss it, like I don't think that we're doing our due diligence, because there are some interesting components to that. really, you know. So I guess I don't want to get fully into that yet because you asked for like initial thoughts, but
Yeah.
those are the things that just like occurred to me right away.
Sure. No, that's fine. Um, Completely understandable. A lot of people, of course, they hear, she is dubbed the toxic lady. They hear about this. Oh, a patient walks into the ER and makes everybody else sick with this mystery illness. It's so mysterious and unexplained. It's not really when you dig into it. I am just going to say this up front. I don't think we have a proper explanation for this. And I don't think we're ever going to get one. And I think that that is just due to the mishandling of the investigation that took place. I'm not happy with the final theory on it. There are just some things about it that don't necessarily make a lot of sense. I'm not happy with any of the theories on it, but we're going to talk about all the theories. And of course, guess what, you guys? I'm not a medical professional. I don't
What?
know if you knew this. Yeah, I'm not. I'm just not. So of course, take what I say with an absolute grain of salt. As far as my personal opinion goes about it. But as somebody who has thoroughly investigated this for the last week, at least, obviously I'm an expert. Um, Clearly,
You're like an honorary doctor at this point, right?
they may as well just give me my PhD. You guys can call me Dr. Asherz. So anyway, um, it is fun and mysterious. It's like one of those, there's like different like ER shows or whatever that have like cases like this, and it's just fucking wild and out there, right? And this is definitely one of those. But I'd say the OG of that. Like Sex Sent Me to the ER. That's a good show if you're ever really bored. People shove things up their butthole all the time and it gets stuck apparently.
Don't
Okay.
do that.
Don't do that, right? That's
Simple solution. Like there are specific devices that are sold that are safe to use. Don't use anything else.
Right, don't use anything other than those devices. I think all packaging, if it doesn't belong in your butthole, should probably come with a disclaimer, "Don't put in your butthole."
We'd have to put it on literally everything.
Literally, that's what I'm saying. I mean, but then at least, hey, you know what? They've covered their end.
If we could put made in China on everything, you're right. If we could put
Right.
like made in China or made in America, because every fucking thing that exists that is sold anywhere in this country has one of those two labels on it. If we could put that on everything, we could put don't put this in your butthole.
I'm serious, the amount of people this happens to, it needs to happen. I'm gonna go to the grocery store and write on every single banana, "Do not put in your
Just
butthole."
not for butt play.
Ask me how I know. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, just trying to make light of a very serious topic. But let's get into it. Yes, you're right. Gloria Ramirez. Let's talk about that for a second. I do want to remind you guys this was a person. This was a woman, a real life woman, and that part's not talked about enough. We discussed the fact of, we discussed this case all over. You could find, I'm not the first podcast to cover this topic. But Gloria Ramirez was only a 31-year-old woman who, yes, was afflicted with late stage, I think it was like stage 3 cervical cancer. And she unfortunately, she died. And, the circumstances of her death are pretty well known that it was kidney failure, right? At the end of the
Yeah.
day, that's what killed her. And the kidney failure was likely due to symptoms of the cervical cancer. Um, I believe she either one of two things happened with Gloria. She either did not have insurance or it was found so late that they could not treat it because there was just no hope for it anyway. Both of those things could be true, right? Cervical cancer we can catch pretty early on. I am a cervical cancer survivor who actually had kind of miraculous circumstances. I had cervical cancer, right? It was terrible, and they were going to remove everything. And then I went and got biopsied 2 more times just for them to be sure, I guess, and now it's
Right.
gone.
Wow.
It's completely gone.
That's awesome.
And thank you. I didn't do anything though, but thank you.
Still, kudos to you for not having cervical
I
cancer
don't have
anymore.
it. I could get it eventually again, but the explanation, I'm like, isn't that like a miracle? Like, should I like thank Jesus or something? And the doctors are like, no, no, it just happens. We probably just honestly, when we were biopsying it, cut it all out. Now it's
You look
gone.
down at that doctor's name tag and it just says Jesus.
That's what happened. But the point is like it's very curable. Like it has a significant survival rate
Right.
because we have all this screening and stuff. And this was only 1994. Again, what's the solution at the end of the day for cervical cancer? There's tons of things they can do. At the end of the day, though, they can just take everything out and like you should live, you unless you are not able to partake in those screenings. Okay, so just my PSA to all of our female listeners: go get your Pap smear. Go go get your smear done. Go get smeared up at the
Got to
gyno.
get them pap smeared.
You gotta get it smeared, and just do it. It's easy. I know some of you women. I listen. I know what you've been through sexually. You can handle a Pap smear. Um. Anyway, but yeah, Gloria Ramirez. I mean, she left behind two kids and a husband. She had a whole family that clearly cared about her very very much because had continued to fight for her because they did believe genuinely that the medical field as a whole was responsible for her death, and maybe they were in a way, but maybe not in the way that they were legally fighting for. So, um, rest in peace to Gloria. With that being said, let's talk about what happened immediately after her death and the investigation that took place here. So Gloria, what they did was they called in a hazmat crew to come check out the ER. They were convinced that this was some type of gas leak or, something weird was going on here. And they had the hazmat crew come in. They found nothing. They didn't find anything strange going on. They had no idea what to make of it. But what they did was they took Gloria's body and they put her in this like aluminum coffin and then put her into an airtight room and kind of left her there for a minute. Didn't really want to do the autopsy yet. Didn't really know what to do with her. When they did eventually perform the autopsy, it was a hazmat crew in suits that did perform it. I mean, they treated this woman as if she was radioactive, you know. But in all fairness, they didn't know if she was or wasn't, you know. Um, so that's interesting. It was the Department of Health and Human Services that took on the investigation to try to figure out what happened with the people that fell ill. And, as Tobias said, they did eventually land on this being a mass hysteria event after everybody's blood work that was involved came back normal. Um, what do
Right.
you think about mass hysteria? What's your
Oh
opinion?
boy. I actually pulled up like, I don't know, 6 or 7 articles that I had written over the past 5 years that all deal with mass hysteria, quote unquote, in some way. And most of the things I end up writing about will be like, let me give you some headlines. School children in Peru suffer hysteria following encounter with Ouija board and black magic.
Oh yeah.
Or what's another one? Wailing ghost reportedly terrifies inmates in Indian women's prison. Or let's see, girl injured during ghost scare that closed school in Ghana. So it's usually related to, at least in the cases that I deal with, the things that I've written, it ends up being used as a convenient explanation for any kind of mass paranormal incident for which we don't have a better explanation. So if we don't have anything else to point at, it's where people just go, shit, mass hysteria. I fucking guess that shit was crazy, you know? And so I guess like where do I land on it? What do I think of it? Like I'm not a huge fan. I'm not saying that I don't think mass hysteria is possible. I'm not saying that I don't think that it exists. But I do think that it is very often used as a convenient explanation when all else fails. And I think it would be more honest in a lot of these cases where mass hysteria is cited to just say, you know what, we don't fucking know, we have no idea. It could have been a lot of things instead of always being like, oh, mass hysteria. you know?
Yeah, I agree. I think that mass hysteria makes sense in circum situations. Well, I don't know what I just said. And certain circumstances, it makes sense. When you think of like a major event that feels apocalyptic, okay, something fucking horrible. I don't know, a terroristic attack, it's an active shooter. When you find yourself in those situations, your fight or flight kicks in, and you are again cut for survival. Like that is your number one thing. Your brain is going to omit a lot of details. It is just purely going to survive on instinct while you are in the middle of a panic. And rightfully so. You're in the middle of a panic. You're in the middle of something fucking crazy, and horrifying and potentially deadly. Um, and then after the fact, when you are asked to then relay what just happened to you during the middle of that panic, it is not unheard of that your brain is going to kind of fill in extra things in there. Um, that I think should be more what mass hysteria is, aside from like where they chalk it up to different things. We're going to cover it on the show eventually. The most notable case I can think of, the dancing plague in France, where people dance themselves to death, to fucking death. These people dance until they fucking dropped, and that was just mass hysteria, right? There's nothing else going on there, and that just doesn't make any fucking sense. Like you're not wired to harm yourself. You're wired to survive. So it's weird that your body would do things that would put you in a compromising position, and then they just go, "Oh yeah, mass hysteria." Anyway, I agree with you largely. I think that is a cop out answer, and definitely in this case, it's a cop out answer. And this is how we know it's a cop out answer, because Julie Gorczynski, she wasn't having it. She said, "Okay, motherfuckers, this mass hysteria. I just spent 2 weeks in the ICU. I was being treated for hepatitis and avascular necrosis. Literally, my knee started rotting on the inside. Like, I had no
Yikes.
problems before. So what's up with this? So you're just gonna tell me these are unrelated?" And of course, they're like, "Oh yeah, it's unrelated. Not related at all." Um, you
Well,
know,
what else is weird about this is there were 3 autopsies done on this body just to give people some idea
yeah,
of the effort that went into investigating this and how baffling the case really was. You had that first autopsy, which was already mentioned, where yeah, they're in an airtight cubicle and pathologists are wearing protective suits and shit. It's like something out of a fucking science fiction movie.
yeah,
Um, then there was a second examination a month later, and then a third one that was demanded by the family because again, they are, and this is notable, they are so sure that something fucked up is going on with their dead loved one that they're not giving up on this narrative. You know, when the hospital comes out and says it's this or it's that, they're just not having it. You know, and this hospital actually had a history of being cited for different different uh, uh, fuck ups, basically. Like they weren't like,
I was
for
gonna say health
instance,
code violations, but fuck ups, yeah,
yeah,
makes
there
sense.
you go. So I had one of those. What do you like a brain health code violation where you can't think of something that you're trying to think of? No, but like a year before like this happened, like literally like a year before this, um, they were cited because the first floor emergency room was permeated with sewer gas.
Right.
So like that's not great.
Yeah.
A couple years before that, 2 employees sought medical treatment after a possible leak of hazardous gas from a sterilizer. Um, and yeah, in '92, this isn't as relevant, but in inspection found that there was algae growing in a water reservoir. So like that one's not maybe not as relevant, but like the other two, yeah, you've got like sewer gas leaking into their emergency room. That's not a good look. And you've got fucking 2 employees who literally had to seek medical treatment because of a leak of hazardous gas.
Right.
And
Right.
so, like, it's not weird to me that, especially when the explanation that hasn't been covered yet, but I'm sure we're working our way up to that 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 there was some kind of toxic element to this woman's body that the family sees that and goes like, well, what, fuck this, are you covering up another fucking sewer leak, you know?
Which they're definitely within reason to do that. And let me tell you, if you ever have a loved one die unexpectedly and you feel like there's anything wrong there, you are 1,000% within reason to hire your own medical examiner and have them do an
Yes,
autopsy.
100% yes.
That is your right. So just keep that in the back of your head in case you ever need it, because you never know when you might need it.
Right.
Again, the family is, I agree, they're within reason. Now she is very sick, right, with cervical cancer, but she had just been diagnosed like a couple months before this. Like this was all still pretty new to them. But because of the history of this, I guess, unclean hospital, we'll say,
Right.
uh, there it's not entirely wrong for them to be like, "Okay, well, how do we know it was Gloria that caused this? How do we know it's not you that caused this?"
Right. And like
Uh,
this is why what I was talking about before, where I mean, generally speaking, yeah, like if you want an objective opinion on something, you don't go to the family of the victim because they're
yeah.
not going to be capable of it. But at the same time, if if you can step back and sort of objectively examine their issue, and you do find that that there might be cause for you to at least hear them out, or take them seriously, then I think that you owe it to them to do that.
Oh, at minimum, right. Because again, they're the ones that have to grapple with this for the rest of their life. For everybody else, for you guys listening to the show, this is just another weekly, Wednesday show for you, These people are still dealing with this every day, you know. And they deserve every bit of closure, and I think that they definitely deserve to be heard. And sometimes, just being heard is therapeutic in and of itself. Now, again, I completely understand why they went after the hospital. Um, because it is weird. Let's back up a little bit. Well, no, we'll continue forward a little bit more, and then we'll get into theories here. Eventually, especially after Gorczynski was like, "Wait a minute, I got all these issues." The Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory steps in. They take over the investigation. Okay, they're like, "Well, hold on a second." Now, a lot of something that a lot of people like to bring up about Livermore is that they deal with a lot of nukes. Like, that's what they do. They study nukes and nuclear power, but they also do a lot of this kind of stuff. They study, chemical warfare and stuff like that. So it's not really that unheard of that they would step in and offer their expertise. All right. But they step in and they're the ones that did conduct the second autopsy, and they did find more than what was initially discovered by the Department of Health and Human Services. Um, they had found that Gloria's body, and this was, I think, this autopsy took place like 6 weeks after her death, did contain a fuck ton of dimethyl sulfone. And your body does naturally produce this. Okay. It is something that can naturally occur within you. But they found, like, I don't know, it was like 3 times the amount that a normal body would have. And the shelf
So much.
life of this stuff is only like a couple days. So the fact that 6 weeks out, she still had that much in her system was like, they were like, well, hold on, what the fuck? This is weird, you know? And I don't want to break that one yet. I don't want to break that theory and exactly what's going to happen yet, but they did find that an explanation that was different than what the Department of Health came up with, which is a red flag again for the family. You know, I'd be concerned as a family member, like, well, wait a minute, you motherfucker said it was kidney failure and everybody was just freaking out in the ER. Like, now you're telling me that she's got this chemical in her body. What is this? You know, um, but I want to back up a little bit to the beginning, to when Gloria showed up via ambulance. Like I said, this is important. She comes in from the ambulance. When you are taken in an ambulance, at minimum, they do go ahead and start you on oxygen. And she was started on oxygen right then and there. And none of the EMS people had reported any strange symptoms. They were not victim to this mystery illness. So that's I find interesting with the explanation that comes out later on. And then some of the other stuff doesn't really like it tracks, but it doesn't track. Again, not a medical professional. But let's go ahead and talk about what Livermore had found and what conclusion they came to. So Livermore had said that most likely Gloria was doing an at-home remedy type of thing for her cervical cancer. She was slathering herself in this product known as dimethyl sulfoxide, which a lot of people have used for a lot of different ailments historically, and nobody really uses anymore. You can still purchase it. At the time, however, there was not a medical grade version of it. So the only kind that people were using was like straight up of a concentrate of this stuff that you would get from like the hardware store, which is used in all kinds of stuff. It's used as a degreaser, it's used as paint thinner. It is an amazing solvent. And so
Right.
it's what it is.
No, it totally. You're 100% correct. Like at the time that she would have been able to get a hold of it, it would not have, because originally when it came out in the 60s and I think into the 70s, you could still purchase it as a like a pain reliever.
Right, like, it's like a
Um,
topical solution.
it was, yeah. You could, if
Um,
you had, if you know, like athletes with like achy knees, they could rub some of this DMSO cream on it, and that was its original purpose. But that was over for 15, 20 years
yeah.
by the time she would have been using it, and 100% she would have needed to buy like the degreaser or something from the hardware store and just be using that as like a home remedy.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
because it turned out that like DMSO can like fuck up your eyesight and stuff. So people were like, no, thank you. And it was generally, discontinued for that purpose.
Yeah, we stopped taking it. I mean, like I said, you can still get topical solutions with it now, but it's not. I mean, it's like 40% DMSO. It's not actually like it's not 98% or whatever it was.
Yeah, I'm
Uh,
looking at a picture of one right now from like I don't looks like the 60s or 70s, and it's like 70% DMSO or
yeah,
something.
yeah, which is
A
a
lot.
big deal. It's a lot, but it's not that concentrated. Um, and in the and I'm no chemist. I know you're surprised, but I'm not. And I can't tell you exactly what 20% means. But according to the people over here at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, she was using a concentrate, and that's what they had found. That was the oily substance that was all over her body. They believe,
Yeah.
not that there was any proof. They didn't take any samples of this oily substance and test them, but that's what they believe was on her body. And this is where it gets weird because it is a chemical compound and an almost pure chemical compound. When it is mixed with certain circumstances, it causes weird things to happen. So, the first bad move, if she were slathered in this chemical, is that they gave her oxygen. And
Yes.
and when you give oxygen to this specific compound, it then creates dimethyl sulfone, which is what they found in her system. Now, they also say that when they are mixed together and they create dimethyl sulfone, they create those weird crystals that they had seen in her blood. Um, but the killer compound that came into play here was actually when they defibrillated her, when they shocked her. Um, the heat giving into what they were doing at the time had then changed this up once again and converted this to dimethyl sulfate. Um, or or maybe and I don't really know. It's not very clear. It was either when they shocked her that caused this to happen, or it's when they drew her blood and the temperature change from her body temperature to the cold temperature of the ER. You ever been in a hospital? It's freezing in there. Um, Converted this to the sulfate, and that is what was affecting everybody it turned into a gas, sulfate's a gas. And that is what people were being, that's what they were passing out over and feeling nauseous for, and this, that, and the other. Um, Initial thoughts on that one, Tobias?
I like it. I do. I like it as in an explanation. It checks a lot of boxes for me. So yeah, I mean, basically to break it down, because I'm looking at the abstract of a possible chemical explanation for the events associated with the death of Gloria Ramirez at Riverside General Hospital, um, which is the official scientific paper submitted to
Mhm.
the scientific journal Forensic Science International by Dr. Patrick Grant, along with some other people. Um, and and yeah, so it depends on the oxidation of this dimethyl sulfoxide through dimethyl sulfone to dimethyl sulfate. And what's interesting about it is you're right, like it creates this highly volatile and toxic agent, and it can be pretty hazardous to people in relatively small amounts. Also, interestingly enough, it doesn't stick around. So it's not going to be hanging around in measurable quantities to where you would notice it after this. So all of the like nausea and dizziness and shortness of breath and everything, these are all symptoms of exposure to dimethyl sulfate.
Mhm.
And so like you would get hit with these symptoms, and then if somebody came around later, they're not going to find this stuff there. But finding the dimethyl sulfone built up in her body,
Yeah.
along with some of the other anecdotal evidence, I think is good enough evidence to point towards this as a likely solution, if not 100% proven. Because as you pointed out earlier, they really fucking dropped the ball on the early investigation of this.
Yeah.
Like when they needed, because again, since this stuff doesn't stick around, you'd have to look for it right away. And that first autopsy and the initial explanation of just being like, oh, mass hysteria, I guess, was total bullshit.
Yeah.
And because of that dismissal of any good investigation, like dismissal of this event as anything other than just bullshit, we didn't get what we needed to straight up prove this. Now all we have is the leftovers and like circumstantial kind of evidence, and what is basically in open case
Yeah.
because of that.
And it wasn't, that's something to note. Typically, when someone dies in a hospital, um, it's especially somebody who's got, late stage cancer. It's not a criminal investigation.
Right.
They're not coming out there to pick up evidence, which is why, sometimes medical malpractice can be very hard to prove because they're not, we're supposed to be trusting our doctors and our medical care. Usually they don't come in and start investigating and looking to build a case, for a criminal investigation. So they're going to miss stuff like that. Well, I mean, the autopsy itself, that's just piss poor. That first one was done really badly.
Right.
But, the thing, like, I've never tried to fucking perform an autopsy in a fucking full hazmat suit, I mean, it's difficult. I don't know. Um, Maybe they just didn't know what to do. Maybe they were just as baffled. And so, therefore, I mean, it doesn't make it okay that they mishandled it, but, there's reasons why they could mishandle it that aren't nefarious, right? Um,
Oh yeah, I don't think that there's necessarily any malevolent intent. I would be much more willing to ascribe general incompetence to
sure.
to that early investigation.
Yeah. And, which is oddly enough, something that we've talked about a lot is medical incompetence on the show since you've been
Oh yeah,
here. It seems to
it
be
just
just
keeps popping up.
it just keeps, yeah, it's what it is. Maybe we should do a spin-off series, Medical Malpractice Mondays.
Yeah, I just hope no local doctors listen to this, because if there are any doctors listening in like southern Wisconsin, you guys are great. You're amazing. So if I need to come see you, it's all good. You know, like I'm on your side. It's everybody outside of you
Yeah,
who
everybody
is
else.
doing all of the malpractice.
Yeah, everyone else. It's just terrible. So the issue here, okay, so let's think about Gloria. She's using this home remedy, right? She's using this unproven thing to try to treat her cancer because again, she doesn't we have a fucked up medical system and they're not going to treat her for whatever reason. And this is something that some people say is historically a remedy that's used in like Hispanic and Latino culture. Um, Latinx, I think, is the correct term now. I don't know what it is, but anyway, again, this is like old family traditional, type of thing. However, this is where the issues come into play that I have with it because I agree with you, Tobias. Upon initially reading that, I go, okay, that checks out. I like that. But after digging into it further, man, I don't know if I like that. So the family comes out and goes, okay, well, we don't know what the fuck you're talking about. She's never used whatever that thing is
Right.
ever. And well, that's a big hole in the story. Now, granted, there are people that say that the family actively denied her ever using this product to treat cancer because they wanted to win their lawsuit. And that could be the case, you know? But it's the way that the family, when they hired their own pathologist to conduct the autopsy on Gloria, the way that that went is very suspicious to me. So by the time they get around to the third autopsy, they really couldn't complete it accurately. Her whole heart was missing. It was gone. And, this happens a lot, actually, again, in these settings. Her body was stored incorrectly. So she was so decomposed, they really couldn't get accurate measures of anything. And then, on top of that, the blood that, the vial blood that had the crystals in it, which would also be very telling, right? If you could just test that blood, you could tell a lot, was gone. You know, I
Right.
don't like that. Um,
It's not great. And that's what I was talking about earlier, where the parts of this investigation were fucked up early enough where we just won't get closure now. Even though I think
right.
that the dimethyl sulfate explanation is by far the best, because
The most
now, and
likely, I
this is where
agree.
we get into sort of the nuance of looking for answers or objective investigation from like grieving families, because there's a point here where the evidence says one thing and they say another, and so I have to start asking myself stuff like, well, you know what? Families don't always know what people are doing, frankly.
That's true.
She could have been using it and they would have no fucking idea.
That's true.
Or, like you said, they could be denying it because they are very unhappy with the hospital. And hey, what's one little white lie if you can put these assholes in their fucking place finally?
Yeah. Or they're just in
So
denial. I mean, death is hard,
right.
you know?
So at that point, you have to go, okay, well, we have this pretty solid scientific evidence here, and then we have your totally unproven word. And how do these things weigh against each other? Well, unfortunately for them, uh, in at least to me, the work of Grant and company in investigating this holds more weight than the word of this family, because there's actually some real physical evidence to support what they're saying in terms of their chemical explanation.
Right, because either way, she did have tons and tons and tons of dimethyl sulfone in her system,
Yeah,
you
that's
know?
weird as shit.
So where did that come from? You
Yeah,
know?
it didn't just appear.
Right, right, and so, I mean, there is I think so okay, so the family hiring their own pathologist to conduct an autopsy, had they been able to do it successfully, they definitely could have come to the same conclusion, right? Oh, hey, these people were correct. This is what we think happened because we were able to test this and this and this, and our information adds up to theirs. they weren't able to do that, which offers just even a shred of doubt, and to a grieving family, that is a golden ticket.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate that it is that way, because even I agree. I think that the DMSO explanation, I think for the most part, it's solid science, it does check out. But then why? I mean, the missing parts in the decomposition stuff, none of that is proven. Like, that's for real. Like, that actually, why did they let her sit there and rot like that? Why didn't they preserve it correctly? I can
They can't even keep
understand.
sewer gas out of their emergency room, you know? Like
Fair, that's fair. But I'm just saying, I understand where the shred of doubt comes into play. I can completely empathize with that in this situation, because there is some shred of doubt there. Um, Here's what it's not. Okay, I'm gonna tell you what it's
Okay.
not. We're gonna share some, we're gonna share some pretty out there theories. Okay,
Oh boy, I can't wait to hear how like aliens are responsible.
God damn it, that was my explanation for it.
I
Let's
just
cool.
guessed. I That was a total guess. I want to hear it. Like how are aliens responsible?
um, I don't think aliens are responsible, but some people do.
Okay.
That wasn't something that I was really going to bring up in a serious way, but let's entertain it for a second. Some people think that Gloria Ramirez herself could have been an alien, or that Gloria Ramirez was an abductee who had recently been experimented on, and the gas was some result of that somehow, some way. Um,
It's like in the X Files. Like if you damage one of those alien like bounty hunters or whatever, and you're not careful, then you will totally die because of toxic gas.
Allegedly, that's where the inspiration for that episode came from. Is this case?
There you go.
Fun fact.
Nice.
Um, as somebody who studies ufology, I've never come across a case like this in ufology. Have you?
No.
Yeah,
Oh
exactly.
no, no, no. 100% not. No.
Never. So I'm gonna just throw that one out. There's no proof of that at all. Not at all. Period. Um, unless maybe the aliens were the ones rubbing the DMSO all over her. Because they know better than we. Just no. I'm not even gonna say that. Let's not entertain that idea.
It's absolutely it is asinine. And what okay. It's totally asinine and ridiculous, but here's why I love it. It's because because few things illustrate so well the the paranormal community as a whole. So I include ufology and cryptozoology and everything sort of under that umbrella when I'm talking about this. So few things illustrate so well the paranormal community's ability to confuse or conflate really speculation with evidence and then use that as proof for for an hypothesis that makes no fucking sense. And that's just the best. They're like, well, wait, toxic gas, right? You know, like, and there's no explanation for it. Well, what if, hear me out, aliens produce dimethyl sulfate naturally?
Yeah.
And so when she was, her skin was punctured by the needle of the doctors, it released the alien gas that exists inside of her. And that's what was affecting them. And then, like, some jackass sitting next to him, you know what? That makes sense. I believe that 100%.
Yep.
You know, if I'm
I
going to
don't
get
think
that
nothing else.
tattooed on my body, I believe it so much. Hell yes. You cracked it.
Yeah, it happens in embarrassing amounts. Refer to this month's episode, Xana the Bigfoot. Um, it happens a lot, and like I said, it's very embarrassing, and people fucking just believe it. They just fucking do.
They make stuff up and then they use the shit they just made up as evidence for their hypothesis, which is also just totally made up.
Yeah.
It's the fucking best.
It is completely out there. And I will say that, like, potential toxic gas, right? Alien toxic gas. There have been contactee reports of maybe something potentially similar, but in most of those cases, it's kind of more. It's not usually referred to as like gas. It's like radiation, right? Um,
Oh yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like there have been credible cases of people having radiation burns or or radiation poisoning after like a close contact event with a in actual UFO, sure, 100%.
Yeah. And so as far as alien goes, I don't think that there was any alien involvement here. But
Yeah. Well, we don't even know if like the credible UFO cases we have that actually resulted in radiation burns or anything like that were extraterrestrial.
yeah,
We
right.
just know that they were unidentified flying objects, right?
Yeah, exactly. But it's a good segue into the next theory is the radiation theory for Gloria Ramirez. Which, it's fun. Out of the theories that I think are least likely, it's my most favorite. That Gloria Ramirez had somehow gotten a hold of some type of chemotherapy, some type of backyard chemotherapy, which isn't completely unfounded. Some people are like, well, where would she get radiation materials? Actually, that's kind of a whole thing that does happen because the healthcare system sucks so fucking much. Um, that maybe she was taking chemotherapy drugs and she became so radiated that she was affecting the people around her. Just she herself was radiated, and therefore everybody was becoming sick. Um,
But wouldn't the level of radiation for you to feel immediately ill like that have to be so high that she would just have been like she would have already been like a withered corpse?
yes, it would,
Yeah.
and on top of that, we would be able to know. I mean, Livermore came in and did an autopsy on her. I'm sure they tested for radiation. That's what they do.
Yeah. Yeah, true.
And didn't find any. I think they were hoping for it, right? They're like the radiated woman.
Yeah, right.
This will be neat. But yeah, there would have been other signs for us to have known, and then the people that were affected, if she was that radiated that she was affecting those people, they would have died shortly after.
Yeah, that's true.
So that didn't happen. But it's fun to think about. I think radiation's fun, right? It reminds you of like comic books. It's
Except for like in real life, it doesn't give you superpowers, it just gives you cancer.
yes, extreme cancer and death. Yeah, that's unfortunately, but I get it. People like the sexy side of radiation. It you become mutated and you get superpowers.
Okay, I'm going to see if I can find this for next year, 2025. I want the sexy side of radiation calendar. And it's going to be like all mutants in bikinis and similar.
Oh my gosh, it's like this fucking. No, it's just a calendar of those horrifying tumors. You know what I'm talking? With like teeth and hair,
Oh God, but in bikinis?
but
Yeah,
in bikinis. Yeah,
perfect. Ooh, getting hot in here. Watch out.
real sexy.
That's horrible. And now I don't want it anymore. It was cool when it was mutants. Because I was thinking of like, well, because like, okay, you've seen Total Recall.
Yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah,
true.
there's like the mutant lady with the
Yeah,
three boobs.
yeah. Everybody wants three boobs.
Well, I want a poster of her, I guess, maybe. I don't know. My wife doesn't listen to this show. It's fine. I can say whatever I want.
She's gonna be like, "When did we get that Total Recall poster?"
Right?
You just be like, "Listen, it's sexy radiation time. It's
Yeah.
the year of
It's a whole
sexy
thing,
radiation."
Emily. You wouldn't get it. Just it's fine.
But again, like I said, out of all the theories that didn't happen, I like this one the best. As weird as that is, and then of course other people say that arsenic, maybe this was a suicide attempt. Maybe
Hmm.
she had taken a bunch of arsenic, which would have, with the same kind of circumstances, converted eventually to arsenic gas, right? And that's what affected everybody. But arsenic gas is so fucking dangerous.
Right.
Like, again, the reason why this didn't happen it's an interesting one. Oh, okay, she overdosed on arsenic. That makes sense, except nobody else died, just her. These people probably would have died, if that were the case, and they didn't.
Well, sure. And what's the half life on something like, because I legitimately don't know the answer to this. Like what's the half life on something like arsenic? Because we know it's really short on dimethyl sulfate, and we know that it's short on it's short on all the dimethyl everything that was probably involved here, and yet they still found it, and so because it was in such quantities. Um, And so, I mean, for something like arsenic, if that was a legit explanation, they would have had to have found some, right?
Well, here's what I'm going to say. Listen, for this episode this week, okay, I Googled the death penalty and lethal injection. I Googled DMSO and dimethyl sulfate, uh,
Right.
radiation, and potential drug conspiracies. I was not about to Google arsenic gas.
You're just like, I'm so tired, you guys. There's been so much death.
Well, no, I'm just concerned now that I'm on a watch list. So
We're already on watch lists. Like
fair
it's
enough.
fine. Just make your peace with it.
I guess at least I have this whole episode as proof. This is what I was doing, I swear. Um, but no, but that's also a good point. Again, there was a hazmat team that came in and scoped the area, right? And they didn't find anything. Um, could they have just again dropped the ball and been bad at their job? Yeah, sure. But at the end of the day, we can't just make up evidence because there's a lack of evidence.
Oh, we can, and that's how I know it was mutant aliens.
Fair enough. That's a good point, though.
Book coming in 2025.
Oh, jeez. So then the last theory that I want to talk about that people are so fucking sold on. Okay, listen. When you Google this and you go to various forums and you read people's opinions about Gloria Ramirez and what they think happened to her, and you listen to shows about it, people are fucking throwing this theory out there like it is truth. Okay. People say that this particular hospital was in cahoots with a big drug ring and they were making meth. Okay. Shit. Hold on.
Okay.
So they're making meth, right? And the hospital is housing the meth precursors at the hospital, and they're hiding them in IV bags. And one of those IV bags, which carried one of the meth precursors, they accidentally grabbed instead of a bag of saline for
Oh
her.
boy.
Right. And them
Just a
giving her.
classic mix 'em up.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it happens all the time. You
Oh
grab meth
yeah.
instead of
Happened to me
saline.
earlier today. I thought I was getting the milk out of the fridge. I grabbed the meth instead, and I'm still high.
It's a pretty good day, sounds like. You
Almost
know,
knocked my microphone over. I was laughing so hard.
so that's what they say happened. There was a big mix up. They grabbed the meth bag instead. They were pumping her full of meth, and either the defibrillation or them drawing the blood, something happened to release meth gas in the air and got everybody high as fuck.
Oh, okay. And so, okay, so were they so high on meth that there was like it caused the mass hysteria,
Um,
or are they trying to say that like meth makes you short of breath and like nauseated?
yes. Yeah, I guess so. The second one, I think, is what they're
Okay,
saying is that they're high on meth. When you get high on accident, I know it happens all the time, but okay, full stop. In all fairness, there are people that are drugged, right? It does happen. You get high
sure.
against your will. It is a very scary situation. Um, Definitely somebody that was being drugged without their knowledge because the nurses don't know this. They just think it's saline, right? So they're going into it, and all of a sudden, now they're meth heads, and it could produce potentially issues with like breathing and I guess fainting if you take too much. I don't know. I've never done meth.
Yeah,
So there's
I
that.
try to be cool. And I want people to think I'm cool, but I have also never done meth.
Yeah, right.
So
I've smoked plenty of meth cigarettes in my day. But what people, of course, again, people are saying, well, again, it's a conspiracy, right? The hospital is a part of this big drug ring somehow. Not necessarily the hospital as a whole, but maybe just individuals within the hospital. Now, what I did find out, I did learn a lot about meth. So that's another one for the books that I fucking Googled this week is meth labs. Um, is that, the precursors to making meth, the chemicals that go into it, the chemical compounds, they do cause a lot of issues, and that's why meth labs are so fucking dangerous to have in the middle of your neighborhood. So,
it's true, and they're very volatile. I think too. Like
yeah, not
shit'll
very nice
explode.
people, right? Yes,
Well, like the chemicals can like explode. Is
yeah,
my point.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, they're saying that this definitely could be a type, maybe the meth was mixed. Again, she also was given other drugs. Whatever. It wasn't actually meth itself that was made and pre-mixed in the IV. It was like, again, a precursor to meth, something that they used to make it. And so they're saying that that could mix in with whatever, the opiates or whatever she was on, that could have caused this to happen.
Does
Um,
that also create dimethyl sulfone?
It could. That's what some people are saying. It
Huh.
very well could. So that's
Okay.
why she had an overdose of it, is because, in her system she had that much because they were pumping her
Oh.
full of saline. They
So
thought.
not only okay, so then the hospital is responsible for her death and the so-called like toxic uh, gas or whatever that they that they said she was emitting.
Right.
That's an interesting theory. I mean, is there any evidence for that?
Uh, I mean, not really. It seems like it was pushed really hard on a specific podcast, and like that's what they believe in. Not this one, obviously, but that's what they believe in.
Right.
And that's where majority of the rumor had spread and kind of caught on like wildfire. But like I said, there's a lot of people that say that yes. Now there's a lot of people that came forward and said, well, in the '90s in Riverside, California, meth wasn't really a thing, which is something to note, of significance. They said that, it really wasn't something that they would have, it would have made more sense for them to just be, straight up selling heroin or anything else, because that's what was popular at the time. That's what people were doing in the '90s. But everybody was doing crack in the '90s. And I know that.
Everybody.
Yeah, no, it's true.
I don't
Everybody
know.
was. Everybody, that was the drug of choice at the time was crack.
Okay.
Um, just statistically speaking, that it was easy to get and it was cheap and everybody was doing it. Meth was kind of new. It's kind of a new thing. But it was around, so it's not like it was completely unheard of. But there's no, I mean, like I said, there's no evidence at all. Of course, drug dealers aren't going to come forward that are a part of this big ring and go, yeah, we know we sold it to that guy at the hospital, and then he was kind of it was kind of like a drug mule thing, right? They were using the hospital as a cover to transport these things to somewhere else
Sure.
and make meth. So,
Which I mean, if you were going to be transporting drugs, I mean, I guess like disguising them as pharmaceuticals and moving them through like the same logistical system that a hospital would use would be a great way to disguise it.
yeah.
Honestly,
It
like that's some shit.
absolutely.
Like that's straight out of Breaking Bad or something, right?
Well, and like saline, so IVs aren't pre-filled at the hospital, right? They show up filled.
Right.
So you get a truckload of saline solution in your IV bags or whatever, that come in, or your truckload of whatever. I mean, that's why, like, if you go to the hospital and they give you something besides saline, usually a saline, they're going to give you a whole bag. But anything else, any other medication, it's from like a half full bag. It's because it's been used on somebody else, know,
Yeah.
because that's how they transport these things. They're not made in house, right? It's not a five-star restaurant, It's
I
not
demand a
an in-house
organic, handmade, boutique IV bag if I'm staying at the hospital. I want to see them make it.
right in front of you. To
Yes.
table or bedside service,
Right. Farm to table IV bags.
They flambe it, right?
Right. I've at
Amazing.
this point I've been dead for like 20 minutes. Yeah.
And they're like, "Sir, your IV bag's ready." And you
Right.
just hear,
I had it coming. It's fine.
So anyway, so one theory that they pose is that maybe it wasn't a middleman at the hospital. Maybe it was just a mix up. Maybe instead of delivering saline, they delivered something else that they shouldn't have, which would have been one of those meth precursor things. And that guy is the one transporting the delivery truck driver. I mean, it goes so
Mm,
deep with the lore, but there is no physical evidence for this at all. None.
right.
There's just not proof that this ever happened. So, unless something were to come out about it, it seems like that would be a really stupid move for somebody that works at a hospital to try to run a drug ring there. Now, people have done stupider things, that's for sure. But it would be really dumb that you could get into so much trouble, especially if the drugs that you are pushing kill somebody, which is
Yeah,
likely to happen.
wouldn't you think that like if you were going to hide your drugs in something, you'd want to hide it as something that like nobody would ever use in a way that would let them know it was drugs?
Right. You're not
Like
going to
if you
hide
put it
it.
in an IV bag, you got to expect at some point somebody's going to accidentally fucking use it, right?
I mean, yeah, you don't hide your drugs with other drugs. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's
that's just dumb.
like if you're planning on poisoning somebody, right? And you have everybody over for cocktails, and you pre-make the poison cocktail, put it in the same colored glass as everybody else's, and stick it in the
Right.
fridge. You know, I mean, that's,
Seriously. No, I mean you're not wrong. That's a good analogy. That's fucking stupid.
you know, that's not how you would do that. You just be like, well, not tonight, I guess. You know, you throw them all out.
Right?
You know, you just don't do that. You don't hide your drugs with drugs. It's a bad idea. Aside from that, there are people that say that saline looks significantly different than any of the meth precursors that they could have been using. So not clear. You know, it's not obvious
Right.
that it could be a mix up. So, um, did you come across any interesting theories that you wanted to? I mean, that's really the most interesting ones I found.
No, I think you pretty much nailed it in terms of potential like hypotheses to explain this. I can make some shit up though, since that's basically all it takes to have one of these dumb internet theories.
Well, yeah, make one. Let's see if it takes off.
Okay, so let's see. I'm gonna say I think that the hospital is actually run by the reptilian Illuminati.
Okay.
And what they had done was they had actually transported one of their own people from the future back in time, but they hadn't accounted for what that does to their physiology, which naturally creates this dimethyl sulfone. And so, what she really was reptilian from the future.
A reptilian time traveler.
Yes. Yeah. And so like and this is a classic reptilian bureaucratic fuck up, right? Like they didn't
Yeah.
fill out the proper forms. And so she was supposed to get an operation before she left. So instead she comes back, she doesn't have the operation. Next thing you know, her blood's turning into poisonous gas and they just got to cover it up quick.
They're just like, fuck it. We got to remove her heart because then they would know that she has a reptile heart.
Yeah, she'd have like a 6-chambered super heart because she's a reptilian. You can't let people see that.
Yeah. You know, that checks. My uncle was saying something about that one time. So that makes sense.
See? You heard it here first. 100% true.
And he knows. He's a blue collar man, you know? He knows all the secrets. Uh,
Right. Now, as a reptilian, I have to say, I think I know a little bit about how our blood turns into toxic gas if we don't get an operation before we travel back in time.
yeah,
All
it
right.
happens. You know,
Yeah. So
every
pretty racist to think I don't know that.
so racist. Wouldn't that be speciesist? Isn't that how it
Sure.
works? Yeah.
Whatever makes me win the argument. That's what it is.
Fair enough. Fair enough. That checks. I mean, that holds just as much water as anything else, I think, you know? It's not
I
as
mean, other
sexy.
than the actual scientific answer that we know is probably correct.
Yeah, I was
Yes.
gonna say it's not as sexy as radiation still. But and I agree that the actual explanation it explains it pretty good. You know,
It does. It does a great job.
even though I can admit, because I'm a person that can admit things that I can understand. Again, the shred of doubt. I get it.
Yes.
I get it. But I think that that's more. I agree. A matter for the family. Having the closure. Than it is for myself or anybody else on the internet to take it and run with it and spin it into something it's not. you know.
Oh, totally. And I'm with you because again, the way this was investigated very early on, um, and the evidence destroyed or lost, it does make it impossible to prove with 100% certainty. And in fact, that is the consensus, even among the dimethyl sulfate hypothesis supporters, is that there are some holes because you couldn't possibly have all the evidence you need to prove it 100%. because of the early fuck ups, in the investigation. So at the end of the day, yeah, I have to land on um, ultimately uh, unsolved, but most likely the dimethyl sulfate explanation is correct. Like that's definitely the likeliest explanation that we have.
And she may have very well overdosed herself with this chemical, and that could have contributed to her kidney failure, or
Yeah,
it could have been the cancer that contributed to the kidney failure. It didn't really, I don't think it really mattered so much at that point. We don't know. Had they been able to kind of catch that part of it while she was still alive, would it have saved her life? Um, maybe could have bought her a little bit more time. You know,
yeah. I had read too that her kidneys failing uh, was likely why or how the dimethyl sulfone actually built up to the degree that it did,
yes,
because her body wasn't properly filtering this stuff, and that's probably why it had built up to the point that allowed this combination of events to occur that produced the dimethyl sulfate. So
yeah. And that is, people like hear like, oh, the fruity garlic smell. That is actually quite common and multiple multiple problems. That was a symptom that I had as a type 1 diabetic, and it's because I had built up sugar in my blood that could not leave.
oh
You
wow,
know,
it's
it's
interesting you mentioned that because fruity garlic that was actually my nickname in high school.
nice. That's better than Joe newspaper, I'll tell you. That's yeah, you had a cool nickname in high school.
Yeah,
Um,
right.
you could be called fruity garlic for anything. I mean, you'd use it as an insult and as a term of endearment.
True.
It works both ways. But this is a common medical symptom of a lot of things, many things. It's just basically exactly that. For whatever reason, your body is not able to process whatever waste naturally, whatever that waste is, and it builds up and creates this weird fruity garlic taste, smell, something or the other. It just happens. It's not really that unusual. I don't know why people think it's that unusual. It's not. I think they also said that the kidney failure contributed to the ammonia smells as well, that were coming from like the blood vial and things like that.
That would make some sense, I think. Sure.
Yeah. Well, if she has a bladder that's not expelling correctly, yes, it does. It's,
Right.
it checks out. So I don't know. Again, people claim this is unsolved. I get it, but it's not really. The definitive explanation that has been scientifically peer reviewed and has now been studied by two different organizations with experts that actually are, doctors and chemists and things like that. They all agree of what caused this, and it just is happens to be a fucking freak accident, really, like a special set of circumstances that caused this to happen. This does happen in other cases, and I'm not gonna, go into detail about the other cases, but there are instances where, like, I read of one case where a guy, I know I said I wasn't gonna do this, but I'm not gonna give you the details. A guy went to the ER, he had gotten sprayed with a bunch of pesticide, and he was making everybody sick, well, because he was fucking covered in pesticide. It's not that abnormal. Like, that's kind of what the ER is there for. You Stuff like this.
True.
So something to keep in mind. Stay away from the ER unless you absolutely have an emergency. Go to urgent care instead, if you can. Of course, finances pending. It's yeah. I don't know. Any final thoughts on Gloria Ramirez and her mystery, not so mystery illness?
Yeah, well, I think that we've pretty much covered everything there is to cover, more or less. Obviously, there's a lot of deep diving into the minutia of the actual submitted paper and everything. You can get into the actual methodology of how they came to that conclusion, but basically, yeah, I think we've landed on the most correct answer that is available, and of course, that is that this bizarre set of circumstances came together in such a way that it produced this gas that that made some people sick, and it's led to this mystery. And it always kind of bothers me that people can't just marvel at the bizarre circumstances that arose for something like this to happen. I mean, right? Because it is marvelous, even if you know how it happened. Can't we just appreciate it for being like so completely fucking weird and random that all of this shit aligned in such a way for this poor woman to be briefly toxic? Like, isn't that interesting enough? Does it have to be fucking aliens or secret meth labs or reptilian Illuminati or whatever fucking bullshit we feel like we need to make up to make things more interesting? Because this is fucking interesting enough. It doesn't need any more bells and whistles. Like, this kind of anomaly and the explanation for it should be the blueprint behind what we do. You see something weird, you have this weird case, and you do your due diligence, and hopefully eventually that leads to a satisfying explanation based on actual evidence, which is what we got in this case. This should be what we want. We should be happy with this,
Yeah.
like, not the outcome necessarily because this poor woman died, but with the results of the investigation. Like, this should be what we fucking want.
Yeah. There's no reason to embellish the story. I agree. It's already interesting enough. It's like the Patterson Gimlin film. And then fucking MK Davis comes along and goes, "Well, but did you know there was a whole massacre behind it?" Like, what the fuck, dude? It's Bigfoot on camera. Like, it's already cool enough. You don't have to fucking make it something it's not.
True.
you know? Um, I agree. Sometimes a story is just a really neat story. And it was actually really fun to, like I said, I'll read multiple articles about these things. I'll go and look up different forums and see just what regular people say about this stuff. Um, Going on like the medical side of this story, not the conspiratorial side, and like seeing what people think about it from there was really interesting because they do just find it as like a type of medical marvel, a learning opportunity, what to do when this happens in the future. It
Yeah.
inevitably will happen again, at some point. And if we live long enough, I guess, to get there, but to kind of use it as a tool, and like I said, and what to do if you are faced with something like this again. Especially ER people, man, they see a lot of shit.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
a lot of shit. And so, to see them all kind of get giddy about this and be happy with this very basic explanation, to maybe some other people's eyes, they think that that's interesting. And I agree with them. I think it's interesting too, which is why I wanted to talk about it on the show. Because it is neat, and it walks the line on fringe with its reputation. But I think that there is a very good explanation for it. I'm happy with the way it turned out. Sad that she died. I mean, my God, I
Right.
guess I have to clarify that, but happy with the investigation overall. Um, and hopefully they did learn to do better. And I think that hospital actually now is completely gone. So there's that too.
Surprise, surprise.
They completely tore it down and started over. I think they just rebuilt it somewhere else, but yeah, it's not there anymore. So don't go to the fucking Riverside Hospital in California and bother those people, please.
Yeah, right.
They're busy enough. Um, but yeah, I think this is I think it's a good place to end it. So, with that being said, guys, we'll see you back here next Wednesday.